Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 266, Trust Matters, How to Find People You Can Really Count On. Welcome back to this month where our focus is all about how to take better care of you in your relationships, the ones you have with others and the one you have with yourself. Last week, we got into how I think it's important to first identify where there might be any toxicity around you, because it's where we need to do the work first in order to create a safe space to work on ourselves. We focused on how trust gets messed up in those relationships, how and why, and how it's the main reason that they are unsafe environments for you, I think. Well, this week, we're going to get into just what trustworthy people look like so you know what's what and what to look for yourself. And if you need some one-on-one help with that, make sure you sign up for a power hour with me. I have a couple spots left for September, but they're going fast. So make sure you hit the link in the show notes for that. If you'd like to do some self-study, I have a mini course ebook on healthy boundaries that can get you started looking at what healthy boundaries are and where you might struggle. And there are 2 other courses, especially my Find Your Voice course, which is the ultimate if you really want to do some serious work on you. And you do deserve to have a healthier, happier life. So the link for that is in the show notes. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, so let's get into it. So I think trust is the bedrock of all relationships. Trust is often referred to as a foundation upon which all healthy relationships are built. Without trust, even the most seemingly solid relationships can crumble, and I've watched it happen. I think it's the glue that holds people together. I think it allows them to feel secure and confident in their connection with other people. And when there are big issues, they really are usually about trust. Another aspect is emotional safety, and if you've been listening, you know I think that is very important. Trust creates a safe space where we can be our true selves without fear of judgment, rejection, or betrayal. When trust is present, I think you feel free to express your thoughts, your emotions, and your vulnerabilities openly. This is so crucial if we want to deepen our bond with other people. And if we want to share our authentic selves so we can heal and we can grow and we can connect. Trust is necessary if we're going to have any mutual respect. Trust and respect go hand in hand, I think. When you trust someone, you respect their integrity and hopefully you believe in their ability to act in your best interest. Likewise, a trustworthy person respects you by being honest, reliable, and considerate of your feelings the best they can. Not perfect, but for the most part. And I think this mutual respect, because you're giving it back, fosters a relationship where both of you can feel valued and heard. Another aspect of trust I don't think we talk about enough is consistency and congruence. Trust is built over time through consistent and reliable behavior. When someone consistently shows up, keeps their promises, and demonstrates integrity, trust naturally develops. In contrast, inconsistency and unpredictability can really erode trust, making it difficult to maintain a strong connection because how can you open up and reach across and connect and guard yourself at the same time? That's really hard. Trust allows for vulnerability and growth, which is essential. When you trust someone, you're willing to share your innermost thoughts and your fears and your dreams, your shame. And I think this vulnerability creates opportunities for deeper understanding and greater emotional intimacy. And that's what makes our relationships meaningful, right? When trust is broken, I think it can be incredibly damaging to a relationship. Feelings of betrayal and hurt and disappointment are hard to come back from. And then they lead to a breakdown in communication, the loss of emotional connection, because that person who is betrayed obviously has to guard themselves. And then they have trauma around this. And rebuilding trust takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a willingness to work through all the underlying issues that cause the breach. And there's research that shows that trust is a big predictor of relationship satisfaction and longevity. And that's both our personal and our professional relationships. We know that high levels of trust are associated with greater commitment, cooperation, and overall happiness. So overall, I don't think trust is just a nice to have. I think it's fundamental for any relationship to thrive. I think it enables emotional safety, creates mutual respect, and allows each of you to be vulnerable and to grow. And without trust, relationships really struggle to do anything else. And I think everything else in a relationship is built upon trust, which is why when I work with relationships and I work with couples, that's the first thing I go for, is to see where is our trust level and where do we need work. Because if we don't fix that first, everything that I watch couples try to build on top of that will crumble. So first you're asking, though, why am I picking untrustworthy people in the first place? Well, choosing untrustworthy people, whether in your friendships, your romantic relationships, or your professional settings, can come from a bunch of different underlying factors. And I think understanding these reasons can really help you recognize your patterns and hopefully make healthier choices in the future. Now, we know the biggest culprit is unresolved childhood stuff. So often our earliest relationships will shape our expectations of trust. And if you grew up in an environment where trust was inconsistent, maybe a parent or a caregiver was unreliable, unpredictable, or emotionally unavailable, you might unconsciously gravitate towards similar dynamics in adulthood, unconsciously, without realizing it. So then you're going to choose people who replicate those familiar, although unhealthy patterns. Hand in hand with that is low self-esteem. When you struggle with low self-esteem, you might believe that you really deep down don't deserve better than what you've been given, no matter what you tell yourself. Again, a lot of this is not conscious. But what happens is this can lead you to settle for relationships with untrustworthy people because you don't really see your own worth, or you don't feel capable of attracting someone who'll treat you with respect and honesty that you deserve. You may be afraid that better isn't out there. You may be afraid that the person who would be trustworthy may look at you and think, I don't know about them. You might not feel good enough, in other words. Another thing we have to talk about is the fear of being alone. And I think that goes hand in hand with the fear of, is anyone better going to come along kind of thing. So the fear of being alone can really drive you to cling to relationships even when they're unhealthy. You might choose to overlook or probably rationalize lots of red flags because the idea of being without a relationship feels more overwhelming and daunting than staying in a very flawed one. And this fear can really cloud your judgment and lead to poor relationship choices. How many people have I sat with over the years where they are in this space? And then they have kids with this person. Then we have a real problem. Another aspect is that lovely desire to fix other people. So some people are really drawn to relationships where they feel like they can fix or help the other person. This comes from a place of empathy or this big desire to feel needed. But unfortunately, it often leads to choosing partners or friends who are untrustworthy or emotionally unstable. They're just not ready to be healthier. So the hope is that, again, conscious or not, through your efforts, the person will change. But you know what's going to happen. This dynamic always results in disappointment and hurt. Not only childhood, but I think other social conditioning can make us ignore red flags due to hope. So it's really common to ignore red flags because hope or optimism that things are going to improve. You need to give the person a chance, right? Maybe you've done all this work on yourself and you figure, they can too. You might see wonderful potential in someone and just focus on their good qualities believing that the trust issues are temporary or you can work through them together, you can fix it. However, that's usually not the case. This hope can really lead you to stay in relationships with someone who consistently proves to be immature and untrustworthy. Then there are the codependent factors where you put yourself last, and you put the needs and well-being of other people above your own, even at the expense of your trust, and that's a big deal. That's going to lead you to choose partners or friends or bosses who are unreliable because your focus is on taking care of them rather than assessing whether they're treating you with the respect and the honesty you deserve. So if your focus is on them, you are subverting your needs and your boundaries and possibly your values. And a part of this too could be this attraction to drama or chaos, as crazy as that sounds when you say it out loud. But some people are subconsciously drawn to relationships that are chaotic or dramatic because it feels exciting or it feels familiar. If you grew up in a tumultuous environment where there was love you, hate you kind of relationships, lots of drama, lots of conflict, you might associate intensity with love or connection. Let me say that again. You might associate intensity with love or connection. And this can really lead to choosing untrustworthy people who bring unpredictability and drama into your life. Now, all of these things point to a lack of self-awareness or just not doing enough work. Maybe you've done some. But if you haven't taken the time to reflect on past relationship patterns, you might not realize why you keep ending up with the same untrustworthy type of person. And a lack of self-awareness is really going to keep you from recognizing the role you play in choosing these people. And then what needs to change to break the cycle. And then finally, overlooking your intuition. You know, your intuition often gives you early warnings about someone's trustworthiness. But you might ignore or downplay these feelings because you want to give the person the benefit of the doubt, which makes sense because this usually happens early in the relationship. You're like, let me see how this plays out. Over time, repeatedly dismissing your gut, though, can lead you to stay in places and relationships where it isn't good for you. So understanding these reasons, I think, can be really empowering because it helps you see the patterns that may have brought you here. And then you understand what you might need to work on in order to make changes going forward. So I want to talk about the signs and behaviors that indicate that someone is genuinely trustworthy. And I know you know a lot of these. And I'm not trying to be condescending. But what I want you to do is as you listen to a list that you probably already know very well, I want you to look around in your life and get gut level honest with yourself about people. And this can be extremely difficult to do with some people in your life because of what it would mean to really face this. But it also may show you why there might be drama. So the first big, obvious one is honesty. A trustworthy person consistently tells the truth, even, and this is important, when it's difficult or inconvenient, which means it's not going to end up the way they want it to. But honest people don't hide behind lies or half-truths. They're transparent in their communication with everyone. This means admitting mistakes and owning up to their actions, and that shows integrity and reliability. And they're not doing it just to get you off their case or to avoid conflict. In fact, they're inviting conflict when they admit something. They're doing it because it's the right thing to do for them. Another big one is reliability. I think trustworthy people do what they say they will do. They follow through on their commitments and they're dependable in both small and significant matters. And I put both small and significant matters here because a lot of people can do big showy things to make them look good. And that's not what I'm talking about. If they're only doing nice things for you when people are looking or when it's shiny, but they're not taking out the trash and doing the grunt work or the things behind the scenes that are not fun at all, and they don't get any attaboys or attagirls for that, you might want to really take a look at that. So this reliability that I'm talking about comes through like showing up on time and keeping promises, being there when you really need them. Along with this is consistency. I think consistency is a hallmark of trustworthiness. A trustworthy person's actions align with their words over time. So there's predictability and stability in the relationship. You know what to expect. They don't act one way today and another way tomorrow. You know why? Because their values and their principles guide their behavior. The opposite is true for people who tend to manipulate and people please and do impression management, because those behaviors are dependent on what they're trying to control. And we can't talk about trustworthy people without talking about boundaries. Trustworthy people have a genuine respect for boundaries. So they respect yours, whether they're your emotional, your physical, or your relational boundaries. They understand the importance of boundaries, and they don't pressure you to do things that make you uncomfortable. And of course, they also set and maintain their own boundaries. And that shows that they value themselves, and they can be a separate person from you. They can only value you in as much as they value themselves. Therefore, they can show empathy and understanding, because I think we need to do boundary work first before we can do that. So someone who's genuinely trustworthy demonstrates empathy and understanding. They try to really listen and show compassion for your feelings, and they make an effort to understand your perspective. So they build trust because they're genuinely showing that they care about your well-being as well as their own. And that's really important, because you don't want someone who's going to lay down and just take anything from you, because then they don't have any self-respect. And you can't trust someone who doesn't have great self-respect. They also are more non-judgmental. They offer a safe space where you can express yourself without the fear of judgment or criticism. They're not going to jump at you. They really try to accept you for who you are, and they don't try to change or control you. And this is really crucial because it allows each of you to be who you are, and it can be a more supportive relationship. They also have good internal boundaries. They use discretion. They know how to keep confidences. They're not going to gossip or share your private info with other people. So you can rely on them to be discreet and protect your privacy, which is really important when it comes to the deep stuff. So consistency in words and actions are a big deal. It builds predictability. When someone consistently behaves in a trustworthy manner, you learn that you can rely on them. So therefore, you're going to have a lot less anxiety and uncertainty and conflict. I think it creates a really strong foundation, because if someone's actions align with their words, over time, it gives us the belief that they're honest and reliable. So then this helps you solidify your trust that you place in them, because you come to expect that they're going to act with integrity and keep their commitments. Their actions reflect their intentions as well, and this is really important. They don't just talk about being trustworthy, they demonstrate it through their behavior. Their words and their actions align, and that shows they're not just saying what you want to hear. They genuinely mean what they say, and they really try to avoid mixed messages. Inconsistent behavior can lead to lots of confusion and mistrust and conflict, because when someone's actions don't match their words, it creates a lot of doubt and uncertainty over their intentions. And over time, this is going to really jack up trust, because you're going to question whether they're really being honest or reliable. How many times have I heard someone say, "Mary, what else are they not telling me? Or what else are they not reliable about? What if something big happens?" I think consistency is a sign of integrity. That's just me. I think a person who consistently behaves in a trustworthy manner really shows that they're guided by their own strong principles and values. So it's not enough to say the right things. A trustworthy person must also do the right things repeatedly over time, even when it sucks and even when it's hard. But this alignment is what truly makes someone reliable and deserving of your trust. So I want to talk about some subtle red flags, because those are the ones that usually trip us up the most. So here are some subtle but usually overlooked red flags that might indicate that maybe they're not as trustworthy as you think. The first one is frequent excuses. Now, I'm not talking about obvious excuses. I'm talking about people who are really good at outsourcing responsibility. But if someone frequently makes excuses for their behavior, even if they're really convincing, but especially when it comes to fulfilling commitments or taking responsibility, that's a problem. What does that look like? It looks like being late all the time, not following through on promises, or half-assing something at the 11th hour, failing to show up when you need them. That's a sign that they're not reliable. And you know what? Over time, this pattern is going to mess with trust because it's going to become clear that they can't be counted on to honor their word. It also, I think, points to the fact that this is a package deal with this person. So I think they're going to be much more likely to be defensive and manipulative or worse when you get upset and confront them and there's conflict. And there will be conflict because guess what? This irresponsibility is eventually going to cause issues, if not chaos, especially as when I watch people get together and maybe they have kids with that person or buy a house with that person. That is when there's more responsibility and there's more shared things. So it's really going to show up more when they're unreliable. What about vague communication? There's another one. So trustworthy people try to communicate very clearly and openly. They really want you to know what their intentions and feelings are. They own what they say. I think it's their truth, and it's probably not going to change. However, if someone consistently gives you vague answers or avoids giving you direct responses, it can really be a sign that they're hiding something or not being entirely honest. So vague communication might look like being unclear about their plans, like keeping it high level, dodging questions about their behavior, or giving you ambiguous explanations when things go wrong. It's a real lack of transparency and ownership. And it's going to make it hard to trust them because you're never quite sure where you stand with them. And with this is the avoidance of accountability. So another red flag is this tendency to avoid accountability for their actions. Trustworthy people show up and they own up to their mistakes and they take ownership for their part in any situation, even if their part is really small compared to the dumpster fire the other person has going on. In contrast, someone who frequently shifts the blame onto other people, denies their wrongdoing, gets your attention focused on how awful these other people are, and they're not owning their mistakes because they can't. So you can't trust them. I think this avoidance of accountability is a big deal because it not only damages trust, but I think it creates a toxic dynamic. Because now you're left to shoulder the burden of problems because the other person won't. So you don't have another grown-up in front of you, is my smart aleck addition to that. So with this is a lot of inconsistent behavior. That's a really subtle but significant red flag, I think. So if someone acts differently depending on the situation or who they're with, that shows you a lack of authenticity. So for example, they might be really charming and lovely and supportive in public, but when everyone's gone, they're dismissive of you and unreliable. And this inconsistency can really make it hard to know what to expect from them. At worst, you might have some serious manipulation going on here too, because they have one false self out there to manage impressions and the real self underneath. You want and you deserve someone who is who they are, no matter where they are, no matter what's going on, or who's in front of them. Now, here's another one that I think a lot of relationships can struggle with, and they don't recognize this as being a trust issue until it's pointed out. They will come to me and say, well, we have communication problems, Mary, or we don't manage conflict well. I'm like, okay. And that is defensiveness and deflection. So when they're confronted with concerns or questions about their behavior, or you're upset with them, or you need change, a trustworthy person is going to engage in a at least halfway constructive conversation with you and address the issue. However, if they become overly defensive or try to deflect the conversation, they're usually hiding something and or unwilling to admit any fault. They can't look in the mirror. And so this defensiveness can be really, I think, almost abusive because it can turn the tables on you, where they try to make you feel guilty for even bringing up the issue, or maybe outright denying any wrongdoing without considering your perspective. They can rage, they can sulk, they can shut down and not talk to you for 3 days. And we've gone over this topic several times on both the podcast and the live, so seek out those episodes if you need a deeper dive, or sign up for a power hour and we can talk about it. I think by paying attention to these red flags, you can have a better assessment of whether someone is trustworthy, and then make better decisions about who to invest in emotionally in your life. I think trust is built on a foundation where there's honesty, there's accountability, there's boundaries, there's consistent behavior. And I think if any of these elements are missing, it's worth reevaluating the relationship, or at least your investment in that relationship. I mean, if they're siblings, or if you have to continue to work for someone, you can't just leave, but you can have some healthy boundaries around yourself. So those are some things to look for in trustworthy people. Trustworthy people earn your trust over time, and they show you who they really are. They'll usually show you when something goes wrong, when they're dealing with things that are upsetting, when you guys have conflict, when there's a miscommunication, or they've let you down, or you need something different. That's when you're going to see the truth. So as you look around your life, I want you to think about who are trustworthy people, who are emotionally safe and functionally safe. Functionally meaning they're going to do what they said they're going to do. Emotionally safe, they're not going to get nasty and manipulative and defensive when you try to bring something up in a healthy way. So if you look around your life and you have a lot of folks who aren't that trustworthy, then I want you to correlate that with how are you feeling? How deep are your connections with these people? Where's your level of sanity? Where's your anxiety? Where's your stress level? All the things, okay? If you're walking around irritable with these people all the time and always angry and frustrated and focused on them, then it's usually because you don't feel safe. And then think about some people in your life where they seem to be trustworthy and you feel safer with them. That's why. And of course, the last thing we have to do is we have to look in the mirror, right? We have to look at our own stuff. Where do we not show up consistently? Where do we need to do work on being congruent and consistent and owning our stuff without being defensive? So it's a really good opportunity to also look at ourselves and look at where we might grow, because what we do know is like hangs out with like. So if we're not doing great in these areas, we're not going to draw to us or keep people who are that trustworthy and healthy, because they're going to keep it moving because they need healthier, as they should. So I just want to remind you how important it is to surround yourself with people who genuinely have your best interests at heart, and that you in turn are showing up for healthy people in the same way. So today we talked about, I think, that crucial role that trust plays in forming and maintaining meaningful relationships. I think it's the bedrock of any healthy connection. I think it gives us emotional safety and creates mutual respect. And I think everything else in a relationship is built upon it. We talked about looking for key signs like honesty and reliability and consistency between their words and actions. And then we talked about why you may pick untrustworthy people. Then how you can start looking around in your life, do some serious thinking and some evaluating of red flags in others and in yourself so that you can break the cycle. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you took away some good stuff to work on and work through. Make sure you check the show notes and join our Facebook group if you need some healthier people around you. We do Facebook Lives every Wednesday night, which are great. We talk about these topics, we get into it, and we support each other. And if you want some deeper work going on, grab one of the courses or work with me. Everything's in the show notes there for you. Okay, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.